Okay, so here I am with another voiceover makeup tutorial for this look, which is inspired by BTS's new album, B. And I guess you could say it's more specifically the title track, Life Goes On, which inspired this, but really it's the whole album, because there's elements I wanted to incorporate from the entire album and not just the title track. So stick around and I hope you enjoy it. So I started off with my base makeup already done. Here's a quick clip of what I included. I'm having some acne issues, so I didn't really want to deal with my bare face on camera. But I started by going in with a light blue shade on a fluffy brush to put down on the areas where I wanted to do the clouds on my face. And this is kind of just a guide for me. I'm going to intensify the blue later on. So this is just a guide so I know where to start placing the cloud shapes. So I took a flat brush with a round tip to go in and start building up the clouds. And now the clouds, you want them to look fluffy and more pigmented at the top where it's round, and then kind of fade towards the bottom. And you go in with the blue shadow to help like fade out the bottom so it's not so abrupt. But for this I just use a white cream shade from the Makeup Forever Flash palette to go in and start building up this shape. And then I go back and forth with two different blue shadows from the In A Trance palette from Colourpop, and I go all around the cloud shape to build up the blue to make it look like it's more floaty, and I just buff that blue color out and then go back in with the white to build up the intensity of the clouds and the spots that need to be more intense. And the key is to really be soft. You don't want it super intense because it's supposed to be a little ethereal looking because it's the sky. So kind of be soft with it at first. Now I started in on the flower, which this is my second attempt. I had to redo the flower because the first one I did just looked like a blue blob to me and I was not happy with it. So I wiped it off and started over. So this is the second attempt. I'm taking a water activated black liner to do the outline. And there's some bits that I messed up, but because it's water activated, I just went in with a clean brush afterwards that I dipped in water to wipe away any lines that I didn't want and to just clean up some spaces. I'm taking the black again in the center to just intensify the center a little bit because that's where most of the color is going to sit. And now I'm taking the Water Bearer loose pigment from Colourpop and I mixed it with a mixing liquid. And I'm just drawing that in the center of the flower to give it some color since this whole makeup look has a blue motif. And again, I want to keep it towards the center because that's the part that I want most of the depth to be in for the flower. And then I just took the blue and outlined the tips of the petals a little bit to just give it more dimension. And I go back and forth between adding a bit more black to intensify the outline and then adding a bit more blue here and there. And I also fix up my petals again just to try and make it look how I want it. I have a reference image, which is a look that Pale Canvas on Instagram did. So I'm kind of looking at my reference image and going back and forth and trying to get the flower in a spot that I like it and that I'm happy with it. And I do the same thing for the two smaller flowers. I go in first with the outline and then I put the blue in the center to give it some color. And similar to the first bigger flower, I kind of go back and forth with adding blue, then going back in with liner and just fixing it up in tiny spots to make it look how I want. And I decided to add another cloud, so I went back in with the white and added some blue eyeshadow over it. And I fixed up the black line because I had messed that up when I was doing the cloud. So now onto the eyes. So I wanted to do this smoky wing look. And now if you watched my previous video, I talked about my hooded eyes and how wing looks sometimes don't work with hooded eyes because the way our eyes are shaped, the wing ends up just getting covered or gets smudged very easily. But I find with smoked out wings, it's a lot easier to do on hooded eyes and it still looks good. And it's also just easier to do this smoked out wing with eyeshadows anyway versus using like a black liner, any type of liner to do a wing. So I go in with 3 different brushes, 2 pencil brushes, one with the blue color, which is Sapphire from So Jaded palette from Colourpop. One pencil brush is clean because I use that to smudge. And then I also use a angled liner brush to just pack in the color before I smudge it out. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going back and forth, building up the shape that I want and then smudging it out and then going back in to add more color and then smudging it out. And you just really got to take your time with this. Although in total, when this clip was not sped up, it was only 11 minutes long. So it really didn't take me long to create this eye look. Because as long as you're using the color sparingly and building it up where necessary as you go, you can really control the intensity. And now I took the glitter shade from the In A Trance Colourpop palette and I put it on my center lid and it was absolutely gorgeous. It was such a beautiful shade. And I'm taking a different shade called Clarity from the In A Trance palette and putting that on my inner corner. And then I took the same Water Bear loose pigment shade and I want to draw this line like above the crease on my eye because I just like how this looks on my eye. I don't know why, I just think it makes it a little bit more dramatic to do this. I've done this before in a couple of my makeup looks and I don't know, I just like how it looks. I'm just taking some concealer to clean up the edges. And now I'm going in with one of my favorite lipsticks, Clapback from Fenty, and I dropped it the other day and it broke and I'm very sad, but it's still usable, thank God. And this is the completed look. It started out a little rough and I had to redo the flower, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's kind of a little bit dramatic, but with the flowers and the clouds, I want to bring in some softness because the album is kind of a mix of these like sad, melancholy, moody feelings, but also there's some amazing bops on the album as well that you just want to dance to. So I wanted to mix the hard and soft elements together. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial and I'll see you next time.